Alrighty, this is going to be the recording for Metabolism lesson 3.1. And so in this lesson, we are looking at how molecules from food, so when we eat food, how those molecules can release energy to our body to help us function and be healthy. And so the first thing that you're going to do is there is a warm up in Canvas. And this warm up is kind of getting you kind of reflecting on what we did last time. And so in chapter 2, we reviewed Elisa's test results and we decided that she had diabetes. And so looking through that, we know diabetes has a lower number of glucose in the cells. And so that was how we kind of diagnosed her. And so you needed to reflect on that and how you think having fewer of those molecules in her cells would make her tired. So that was the warm up. So that is your first thing. So do that and submit. And then the next thing is we are going to look into the notebook. We are doing a new notebook because it's a new chapter. We are in chapter 3 now. And so make sure that that chapter 2 notebook was turned in, which some of you have not done that yet. And that's going to start going in as missing here very shortly. But you can see linked at the top of the module for this week, I have our new notebook. And it only has 2 lessons in it because we are going to cut a lot out of the rest of the unit because a lot of it gets kind of repetitive. So we are going to kind of wrap up this unit pretty quickly. And so going back to the home page, so make sure you open up that notebook because you're going to need it. Going back to our home page, you're going to see that we are doing slide 8, 9, and 10. So in slide 8, I will go to my notebook. In slide 8, the first thing is kind of like a prediction. And so we are going to look at these 6 claims, and we are thinking about this question here: which molecules do cells need to release energy? And we've been studying a variety of molecules, and so you are going to decide kind of your, like I said, your prediction, your initial idea. And it's okay if you're wrong because we haven't really, started investigating it yet. And we are going to investigate this with the simulation. So you're going to make your initial guess now, and then at the end of the lesson, we're going to come back and you're going to kind of reflect on if your claim was right or wrong. And so we have 6 claims here. And remember, which molecules we need to release energy. And so it says cells need glucose for claim 1. Claim 2 says cells need amino acids. Claim 3 is saying we need oxygen. Claim 4 is glucose and amino acid. Claim 5 is glucose and oxygen. And then claim 6 is all 3 of them: glucose, oxygen, and amino acids. So you're going to highlight which one you agree with. And then we did this activity together. And so we compared our breath rates and our heart rates, our resting rate, and then our rates after a minute of exercise. And so the breath rate is under the nose, feeling your breath. And so every time that we had our breath come out and we felt the air on our nose, we counted that as 1. And so for 1 minute, so you want to pause this video for 1 minute, you're going to just count how many times you feel the air come out, and you're going to keep track of that number. So what we did in class was we wrote it in the chat, and then we also wrote it on a piece of paper because, like I said, we're comparing our resting rate, which is our original. We're sitting, we're relaxed, we're not doing anything, so that's our resting rate. And then after a minute of exercise, then we took it again. So remember, 1 minute. And so after that, we observed our heart rate for 1 minute. And there's 2 ways to do that. We're taking our pulse. You can take your pulse in your neck, which is right here, right under your jaw, and you kind of press, and you press a little hard, obviously not too hard to hurt yourself, until you kind of feel that thump. You can also do it in your wrist, but I know I personally have a hard time finding my pulse there, but there's two ways to do that. And so you are going to feel that steady beat, and we're going to count. Each time you feel it thump, you're going to count. And you're going to do that for a minute too. And so at this point, you should have both your breath rate and your heart rate. Remember, you took each of those for a minute, and those were your resting rates. Because now what you're going to do is you're going to exercise, and what we did in class was we jogged in place for a minute. And then after we jogged in place for a minute, we took our we took our breath rate and our heart rate again. And then we compared the two. So you'll need to do 1 minute of exercise. Like I said, running in place was the easiest because you want to make sure it's some movement that's going to get your heart beating. You want to get your blood flowing. You want to have movement. If you want to go run outside for a minute, since you're watching the recording, whatever gets 1 minute of activity and movement. And then, like I said, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to check your pulse for a minute, and then you're going to check your breath rate for a minute, and you're going to compare those two numbers. And you can see down here, it wants to know, how your breath changed after 1 minute, and then how your heart rate changed after 1 minute. Okay. The next activity is probably what most of you are tuning in for. I know we had technical difficulties, and so this was the simulation activity, and this had us looking at which molecules we need to release energy. And so we open the sim, and we select healthy body, and we are clicking observe. And then after we click observe, we're going to play and set the activity level to jog. And so down here, we are going to have without glucose in our test. Let me read the directions real quick to make yep. And I'm going to be filling in my data down here. So test A, without glucose, and we're going to have our breath on, and we're going to feed it 1 fish. And the tricky thing with these tests is when they are jogging, we are actually going to watch the simulation in graph view and see at what time they stop jogging. So let me show you. So we're going to observe, and like I said, we are going to feed it 1 fish, and we are going to take our activity level to jog, and the breath is on, and I'm actually going to speed it up so that it goes faster. And then, like I said, I'm going to watch it in graph view because what I'm measuring is when the person stops jogging. So they are jogging, and I am waiting until they stop. And I have my timeline down here to show me right here what time they stop jogging. We're still jogging. Still jogging. and boom. We can see this little line here. That is the point where they stop jogging. And so that was about 70. So I'm going to go to my chart, and that was 70. And then it wants you to do 2 trials. For time's sake, I'm only going to do 1 trial. I know some of your simulations weren't working on your end, and that's okay. We know in science doing more than 1 trial is what we're supposed to do, but like I said, for time's sake, my video recording would be 5 million hours long if I did 2 trials for each. So I'm going to skip forward and I'm going to do test B. So this is without amino acids. And so I'm leaving the breath on and I'm feeding them 1 corn. I'm doing the same thing. So I'm going to go to the simulation. I'm going to reset it. And I also don't want to upset the simulation since we all know it doesn't like to work. So I'm hoping I can get at least 1 trial of each, especially since it's working slowly. I've clicked observed. Let's see. There we go. And so we're starting over, and this time I am feeding it 1 corn, and we are once again changing the activity level to jog. I don't know why it doesn't want to work. There we go. So we're changing it to jog. I'm going to change the speed to 2 to make it go faster. And remember, we look at it in graph view up here, and we are measuring when the person stops jogging. Still jogging. Still jogging. And there we go. So it looks like at about between 100 and, so we'll say 101 is when they stop jogging. So without amino acids, it was about 101. And then our last test is without oxygen. So we're going to stop the breath and feed 1 corn and 1 fish. So I'm going to reset. Start over. Observe. And so I'm going to feed one fish, 1 corn. We are setting it to jog. We are also going to stop the breath. And so going to speed it up. And observe. And remember, we are looking for when they stop jogging. And it's already happened. And so we can see that's at about 45. And so we can see that looking, I'm going to move me over here, looking at our different tests, we have our control tests where they have everything, and that was about the time lasted. And so without amino acids, didn't really affect it. Glucose affected it, and oxygen affected it. And so we know that our goal was to have it last about 100 to 132 time units, like up here, and amino acids didn't really affect that. Like I said, glucose and oxygen looks like we need those. And so going to the next page, on the next page, it has you revising your claim. And so based off the test that we just ran, what molecules do you think our cells need to release energy? And I kind of gave it away already, but you're going to talk about which claim you picked in the beginning and which claim you pick now. And if it's the same claim, that's okay. And then you're going to use some evidence to support it. Now I would use evidence from the simulation we just ran. That is where your evidence is coming from. So example being, I know that these cells need oxygen because without oxygen, the body cannot breathe. And so when we turned the breath off in our simulation, the person could not continue jogging. It lasted the least amount. And so you can say things like that. And then the 3.1 homework I cut out, so you are not doing slide 11 because we had too many issues with the simulation running on my end, on your guys' end. So do not worry about this homework. You are not doing slide 11. You just want to make sure slides 8, 9, and 10 are done. And that's it for this lesson.